Hey everybody, Chris here from Chris and G Travels. We have another interview today, and today we have Wes from Transcend Existence. So his bus was one of the motivating factors for us to get a bus, and definitely the motivating factor to raise the roof. That whole project that you saw here on YouTube. So Wes, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are, and we'll get started.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Wes Lewis. I got a YouTube channel called Transcend Existence. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Chris has been a good inspiration for me to kind of follow this path and head out on the road, man. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that,
great,
that
great.
that was funny. Like when we first met down at the Tiny Home Jamboree, like just talking about influencing each other. It's like a reciprocal pattern of I started out with the RV, and then you decided to do that, and I was like, man, I got to do that too. That looks amazing. Like obviously the bus. I mean, I've gone over it so many different times why I like the bus platform so much more in a Class A after spending 3 years in a Class A, and yeah, so it's crazy how that pattern worked out.
Yeah, it's great. Great to connect with you, for sure, man. No,
So what we want to do in this video, and we just touched base on it right before we started this video, is right now I'm to the point with the bus where things can deviate pretty rapidly because with the roof raise, there's pretty much one way or it's a very narrow line to do the roof raise, right? You need to get your steel support, you need to put the sheet metal on the side and cut in any windows that you want. Now we're getting to the point where, again, I just feel like it forks. There's so many different options, and I wanted to touch base with Wes because he's done this. I mean, as you see behind him, he's in his bus, and he's gone through everything that I'm about to go through. And watching the videos, like for example, the roof raise series on my channel took, I think, 8 videos, 9 videos. I'm not too sure, but that was 2.5 weeks of working every single day, like from pretty much when I woke up till I went to bed. So there's so many small little things that aren't shown in the videos. So to wrap it all up, the point is just to ask Wes some questions that I have coming from this particular point in the build. And the first thing I want to ask you are the runners. So we talked again very briefly before this video. I was telling you like what's happening with the bus, and you mentioned for your runners. First of all, can you mention what runners are for those that don't know what runners are, and then also what did you use for your bus?
yeah, so runners are basically along the rib structures that you have on the sides of your bus that go straight up and down and around the roof there. What you want to do is run runners horizontally, I guess, across those rib structures. And what that creates are attachment points for the walls to go to. If you're going to spray foam insulate, it's good to put those in first and then spray foam everything out to the face of those runners, basically, and then you can saw it off and smooth it out to that point. And then you can attach your walls to all that stuff. It does create a little, if you kind of know where your height is for your cabinetry, and that sort of thing, you can place those strategically in those places so you have a little extra meat to screw into as well. So that'll create a little better, mounting position. So
Absolutely. So when
yeah.
you did your runners and you said you did it strategically, how did you do that? Did you put masking tape on the floor and then you went up to the level that you thought it was going to be and then you put stove or cabinets? Like how did you map that out?
So pretty much 36 inches is standard cabinet height on the lower cabinets. And then, of course, on the upper cabinets, it's just kind of wherever you're going to place those on your bus. So just keep that in mind when you're running your runner. If you think the bottom edge and the top edge, are going to fall in within a certain parameter, make sure you put a runner there so you got some good meat to screw into.
Mm-hmm.
To run one as low down, I know you have a chair rail down there, so you can't really screw into that, but put one right above your chair rail so you can screw on your lower side of your cabinets, and then put one just under that 36-inch mark if you're going to go standard height anyway. That way you can screw into the top of your cabinet as well.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
you
Don't
mentioned,
forget about your ceiling also. Make sure you put quite a few in your ceiling to make that contour,
yeah,
so you got some points to screw to.
absolutely. So real quick, you mentioned the seat rail. And what that is on these school buses is there's a rail that goes along, what would you say, about a foot up from the floor?
Yeah, probably 12, 14 inches or something.
So what that
I
does, that
kind of see it in
runs,
your video.
yeah, yeah,
Kind of see it down in your video down there. So
there it is, right
yeah,
there.
yep,
So what that is what the seats, they're bolted into the floor, and then they're also bolted into the side there. So that's what he's talking about when he's talking about the
chair rail.
The chair rail. So how did you place your receptacles, your electrical receptacles, as you're doing the runners?
Okay, so there's definitely more than one way to do this, of course. And with my build, like I told you when we had a talk, down there at the Jamboree, I really didn't have a for sure floor plan. Everything pretty much I just visualize it in my head and I just kind of build it, and so I kind of wing it, I guess, sort of like. So as far as the electrical and all that stuff, I ran all my stuff through my cabinetry and then just popped up a receptacle wherever I needed to in my cabinetry. But if you have an exact floor plan, you know exactly where everything's going to go ahead and if I were to redo this and I did have a floor plan, I would run conduit through my walls, just a flexible conduit before I insulate. That way you can just feed your wires all in it, get it all ready to go, and then just go ahead and get your receptacles put in place and get all your wiring put in place and then insulate. So yeah, there's definitely two ways. Just kind of winging it like I do, just visualizing it, making it happen. And, for others, you got a definite plan you have down on paper. You know exactly where things are going to be. So one thing to consider is things definitely evolve and change a little. Even though you think you got it just the way you want it, you're going to make some changes. So keep that in mind as well.
So when you mention conduit, can you explain what that is?
So they've got this, it's some flexible hose, basically. I've seen them online. I don't recall the name of it, but it's just a blue kind of a flexible plastic, like conduit type stuff, and you can just run that behind your runners or whatever, and up the walls or whatever you need, just attach them in place. And then once you spray foam, it'll just hold them exactly right in place. And then you can still fish line through there if you need to.
Right. That's what I was going to ask. If you do have to do a repair, if a wire went bad, if you needed to put new wires in with that conduit, basically if you do that, like just the spray foam with your wires, you're going to have to cut out all that spray foam to repair or put new wires in, where with that conduit you can actually snake it through and possibly add new wires, correct?
Yeah, totally. If you conduit, make sure you use just a bigger size than you think you need. That way, just in case you want to run some extra wire or do something else later down the road, you'll have the freedom to do that. For me, I didn't do that, of course. I just spray foamed right behind my runners, spray foamed solid the walls, and like I say, I just kind of ran the wiring through my cabinetry and that sort of thing back on the back wall, on my lower cabinets and my upper cabinets. So,
so
little different scenarios.
Right. Did you do the same tactic with your water system? Did you just kind of do the spray foam and then whatever happens, you make it work around that?
Yep. So all my water lines and everything, and with my floor plan, my water lines don't have a very far run at all. My kitchen, my bed basically is my underneath my bed is my utility area. So my water pump and all that, water tanks and all that stuff's right there. And virtually right behind my bed is my shower and my hot water heater. And right in front of my bed is basically, my kitchen sink and all that. So I didn't have very far runs to go. So I went right through my kitchen cabinet and just right into my bathroom wall back there.
So basically just the floor plan that you have did not require that much worrying about the water.
Yeah, exactly. I would say if you're going to be in Four Seasons quite often, if you're going to be heading to Alaska again or whatever, man, definitely keep your lines inside the best you can. Because and I would even recommend putting your water tanks inside the bus. Just solve any freezing issues, of course.
Yeah, I mean, later on this video, we'll actually be going through a 3D model of the floor plan that I have figured out right now. I mean, it's not 100%, obviously. The only windows that we have in here right now are the side windows, and I'm going to be cutting out the other bus windows or using RV windows. I'm still trying to get that figured out because I was smart enough to leave my emergency exit windows, 4 of them, in Colorado with Jim. As I was packing, I left them in his front yard, so that was very smart of me. But one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you is it's going to be a lot easier for me to do things now rather than rip up the floor and put new stuff in, and also cut through the foam insulation, because I don't know how well that foam insulation actually stands up after you cut through it. Can you touch base on that? Like, say if I get this thing spray foamed and I decide to cut out an extra window, does that degrade the foam that much, or will it stay solid around the areas that I cut?
It'll stay solid.
Okay.
That closed cell foam is super rigid. I mean,
Okay.
it's got like a 30% rigidity factor to it.
Okay.
So it should stay solid, no problem.
So going on from that, I want to touch. Well, let's go ahead and stick with the foam for now, being that we're on the topic. Did you get a do-it-yourself kit, or did you hire somebody to come in to spray your bus?
So I actually hired someone. I kind of did a cost comparison, and for me, it was actually here local where I'm at. It was about $200 cheaper just to have somebody come out and do it for me.
No way. Like, I guess because I saw a kit for $600, but I don't know if that one kit could do our whole bus, right?
Right. You got a full 40-footer for my bus. For my bus, mine's 34.5 foot. You know.
Yeah.
Of course, doing the roof raise, it adds some wall height, of course, and your bus is very similar to mine in that we don't have many windows, so you've got a lot of coverage.
Right.
Theoretically, just kind of doing the math, and we got about 2.5 inches of spray foam in this thing completely. It would take about 3 of those kits to do this. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So that's where I'm saying for me it was a little more economical just to hire it out. So I did have to do all the sawing and cleanup of everything. Right. But he came out and sprayed it. And, you know, I had a little better peace of mind because I knew if I was hiring a good contractor, I wouldn't have that possible issue of the spray foam not setting up correctly and gassing off and causing problems later on down the road. You know, at least I'd have someone else to blame.
Right. Yeah, and if yours took 3, then mine would take 4, so that's $2,400.
It probably would, yep. So
not including the time.
Well, actually, what'd you say you found? I found them for about $600 to $700 a kit.
6. So so it'd be 1,600. No, 6 times 4, 2,400.
Yep, $2,400. So it'll save you a little bit of money.
That's another fun aspect of this. There's always big costs.
Yeah, totally, man. But I'll tell you what, the spray foam in this, I've got my wood burning stove going here, and you can. It just holds the heat in all overnight and everything. It's awesome. Really nice. Yep,
fantastic.
Nice.
Speaking of heat, I was talking with Jim and Debbie, and when they first told me about their radiant floor heating, I was like, I'm not going to do that. But now I'm looking at the diesel heater that I'm looking at. It actually has 2 coils in it that you can run water through. One I was planning on using for my hot water tank, but I don't know if I'm going to do an instant hot water tank. I'm not too sure yet. That's later on down the road. But I was thinking if I just had a closed system and some radiant heat running through the living room, not even through the whole bus, just get about maybe 50 square feet, 60 square feet just in the living room area right next to that diesel heater, and having some extra radiant heat from that instead of just having the diesel heater itself. I didn't know if you looked into any type of radiant heat or anything along those lines. Is that something that you've ever considered?
I did kind of consider it. For me, I kind of knew that I was going to be in a temperate weather situation most of the time. You know, it's pretty nice. But man, if you're going to Alaska all the time or whatever, your feet will love you if you put in radiant heat.
Well, it's not even about because when they first told me that, like they were like, yeah, like it's so nice having your floor warm. I was like, I don't care if the floor is warm. I just want it to be warm. But part of that is it also just radiates that extra heat. Like it takes that extra heat that's just being, blown at the top of the heater, and it actually warms up the floor itself. So you have the heater and the floor itself as 2 separate heating elements. And that's what really got me thinking about it. So I didn't know if that's something you considered, any pros or cons or any particular reason why you didn't do it, but it's just more you're going to be around warmer weather.
Yeah, I kind of figured I would chase the good weather, the best I can. With those systems, I haven't looked into a whole lot of it. Is it so if you are going to be in freezing weather or whatever, you would want it, your metal floor will radiate cold right into, so you want to make sure you have a good insulating barrier between your water lines and your metal floor, of course.
Absolutely.
And I was wondering, is there an antifreeze or something that you'd put in that line rather than just water? Maybe
you would think so, right? Because it's not going to be drinking water. Friendly. I'm not going to tie it to the system. It'll be its own independent system. But the way Jim did it from Life is Joy with his bus, he just routed through the top of his insulation and his wood. So he just did a a line pattern back and forth, but he did his whole bus. Again, I'm not really looking into that, but that's something that I'm really considering, especially if we do get that diesel heater, because I'd love to use as much of that heat as possible, and if it can radiate off the heater in the floor itself, that's something that I'm really considering.
I would say if you definitely not going to hurt yourself doing it for sure. That'll be really nice, especially in cooler weather. It would be, because my bus stays really warm, and what I found is I've got to have a fan running because all the heat rises right to the top of the bus, and the floor, especially near the entry door. If you step in and there's a little water on your feet or whatever, from snow melting or whatever, it'll freeze right on my steps or whatever. It stays cold down low on the floor.
Yeah.
So even though it's 90 degrees up here, it's below freezing down lower. So it's kind of wild. So I need a fan to kind of circulate the air to even the temperatures out.
Right.
Yeah.
Something to consider. So again, when I prefaced this conversation, it was I want to make sure that I'm doing stuff now before I have to go back and tear something up and redo it, cut through foam. So two big projects that I have in mind, it's going to require a lot of welding, a lot of fabricating, is a roof deck up top. And again, this could just be a dream right now. I don't know how this is going to work out. But what I'd love to do, and I'm going to tilt this up, that emergency exit window right there. So the dream is to have like a attic ladder that stores up as we drive, and then whenever we want to go up to the top, it just comes down, and then we can use this hatch to have like a deck up top, so whenever we go somewhere, we can actually just hang out on top of the roof. So the back half, where the back emergency exit window is, all that will be solar panels, and the front will be the deck area. And again, this is just a pipe dream, so who knows how this will work out. But before I get that spray foam insulation in there, I wanted to touch base on what type of bolting, what type of fabrication I'd have to do, because I see some people bolting directly to the H channel, while other people, it seems like they're welding to the side of the bus on the H channel and then doing their rack up from there. And also, actually, we'll go ahead and stop right there and just get your feedback on that idea and what type of fabrication would have to be done to make that happen.
Okay. For me, it's probably a matter of personal preferences, the way you want the aesthetic look to be. For me personally, I didn't attach on the sides of my hat channel. I don't have a deck, of course, up there, but I've got my solar panel racks up there, and I built them probably a little beefier than I needed to. But I didn't want the look of them mounted on the sides, so I kind of went up a little bit on top of the roof, just about maybe 10 to 12 inches in from the curve, and then created little standoffs, and they only needed to be about 4 to 6 inches, I don't recall, maybe about 5 inches or so. And that standoff would make it high enough to reach over the center arc of the roof, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little standoff that just got above the arc there.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed the bus to still have its natural contour rather than it squaring the whole thing off, which
Gotcha.
So I really think as long as you attach to your H channels anywhere, either on top or the side,
that's fun.
The
masking tape from on the way home it's a little windy today.
Sure. But yeah, I think as long as you attach to your actual structure, your H channels, either way you'll do fine. So I think that's more of an aesthetic look for me.
Okay.
Structurally you'll be okay either way.
So you just attach that to the H channel. You wouldn't necessarily need to do, like, would you just grind that down up top and then weld on basically the angle of the roof and make those stands? Is that how you do it, or would you actually bolt it down? Like how would you fasten that?
So an easy way to do that, what I did, I may have to just send you some pictures maybe later, just because I didn't make a video on my solar panel deal. Mm-hmm. But basically, you can just take angle iron, and you've got your roof. It's got a little contour in it this way, and you can take angle. I'm going to turn my bus sideways now, so the bus is running. So you can take your angle. Say this is your hat channel you're going to connect to. Actually, you've got 2 rivet rows on your hat channels. Okay. So take an angle and come down with it here and over here. Okay. and then bolt it into your hat channel. It doesn't need to be on both sides, because you'd need like a 3-inch piece of angle, which is pretty stout. You can use like 1.25 or so, 1.5 inches. So just attach, so you can have 2 bolts that'll attach into your hat channel, dunk, dunk, and then it comes up like this. And then from that point, you can drill a hole in the side and attach square tubing right to it, and you can bolt it to that angle iron, and that could be at any angle you wanted. Which honestly, so I'll turn the bus back around so it's facing this way. So you've got your angle like this, and then you've got your piece bolted with a bolt through it. I mean, honestly, you'll probably just put it straight up and down to build a deck on, but that does have. So on my solar panel mounts, I was going to do a tilting mounting system, so that allowed me to have a bolt right through it, and the whole panel will pivot on those 2 bolts on my rack.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do it that way, just a piece of angle with square tubing coming up, and build your rack across it all.
So it's really no welding.
Yeah, no welding at all really up there. Just weld your rack together, of course, so it fits your dimensions of your hat channel, all your angle. I can maybe draw you a picture if you don't quite. I don't know how well that related. But.
No, it absolutely related. So the only question I have with that is, as that angle is that you're connecting to your H channel, that 1.5 to 3 inches, did you have to bend that? Did you have to beat that down to make it flat along the H channel?
So actually, that angle is only about 2 inches long. So you've got your angle this way or whatever, and it's only about 2 inches long, just enough to get 2 bolts into it. Mm-hmm. So they'll be mounted kind of goofy on the round part of the exterior of your bus.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be mounted this way. They're only about 2 inches long, so 2 inches is nothing in comparison to your. You'd have to go way, way out. But if you look at your bus there, about 12 inches in from the wall, it starts becoming fairly flat.
That is pretty flat.
Yeah, so 2-inch, just a little 2-inch piece.
Okay, I got
so all you got to do is just have enough to drill a hole through it, to mount your rack to.
Okay, so that's something that I'd have to do before spray foaming.
Yeah, if you wanted, you could. I use just those Tech brand self-tapping screws and just bolted right into it that way, and they actually hold really well. But if you really wanted to do it really nicely, yeah. Like say, I kind of winged everything here, just I didn't have a solid plan, so
right. Yeah, I'm just thinking multiple uses with people standing on it. I might need a bolt rather than. I mean, I don't know how those screws work, so I'm gonna have to do some research, because I've never used those before, so I'm gonna have to do some research on that.
Yeah, they're pretty nice actually. They have, and actually, as long as they're stuck in place on your roof. That bracket isn't going to take any sideways or any kind of attention to shear or bolt or anything. All the weight is going straight down onto your bus. They're not actually, holding any weight or anything. It's just holding that bracket in place.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, that's what, I've taken my bus to Colorado and down to Texas, down the Jamboree with my solar panels mounted up there, and I have no problems with any vibration or coming loose or anything. They're holding really well.
Awesome. Yeah.
They're designed for sheet metal and whatnot, so they work really well.
Awesome.
So your preference, if you could pre-think it out and bolt them in place, that's definitely a step above for sure.
we'll see how far I can push things before I mess something up too bad. So the roof is something I'm thinking about, like a front deck area. We'll see, actually sit down and think about how much we're actually going to use that. I mean, it sounds cool, but it could be one of those things like a hot tub. It sounds cool, until you have it in your backyard and you're selling it on Craigslist for $10, right?
Yep, I've been there before.
Right. So
novelty.
Yeah. So we'll see. I need to do a pro con list with that. But one thing I definitely want to do, the roof is kind of like a, like I said, just a pipe dream type thing. But I do want to add underbase storage. And I've seen some people, they put all thread, 1/2-inch all thread, and they bolt it inside and then use that as supports. I didn't know what your thoughts were on that, because I was thinking of actually just welding everything on and actually welding tubular steel to the side of the frame rather than bringing those all threads down and having to deal with those. Because in my head, being that this is a rear engine bus, I was actually thinking of through storage. Like actually, because I only have on our passenger side, there's only two storage bays. So I was looking at the possibility of just making one large storage bay unit and then having multiple doors on that. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So
Yep.
I just wanted to pick your brain on prefabricating work that I'd have to do to ensure that? Or would I even have to bring any all thread? Would I have to drill a hole and bring that down as supports if I can just weld to the frame? Like, have you thought about adding any storage like that or any insight on that?
So your bus is really cool because it's a rear engine. So you could actually have through storage, because you don't have a
Mm-hmm.
drive shaft running from front to back, to stop it.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, I think you could weld probably, but the better thing to do is to bolt through your frame rather than weld right to your frame.
Mm.
Um, and another thing you'd probably want to think about is, so your body and your frame are two separate units basically. If you do come down off of your frame and then come out, you're going to attach to your body, so that pretty much conjoins everything as one. I know the buses probably don't flex a whole lot, but there is going to be just a little bit of flex issues. Welding would be, like I say, bolting, I guess, would probably be the better thing to do if you can drill through and bolt right through. That way, if there is any tweaking or anything, it allows for a little bit of give rather than a
Mm.
solid weld cracking or breaking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
in terms of prefab, then would you suggest doing the all thread? Because again, like for example, with Jim's video, he just essentially had six all threads, and he only built one bay. So he had a bus like yours, which was a activity bus that had four storage compartments with it, right?
right, right.
So he built one bay and he put six all threads down through his body and then made a structure down there for a storage facility. But I'm looking more again one large unit that has through storage that I'm able to utilize. So
Yeah, I would do that for sure.
what would be the first steps with that? Because I just did the video be coming soon, but I just finished the floor, like it's all sealed and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's now that I have it set up, I want to get everything done before we start doing the 2x4s and the insulation on the floor, and So what do you think would be the best route to get good solid underbay storage? What would I need to do right now?
So, are you want to fab your doors up completely by yourself, or are you wanting to just buy like Joe box type things, or just buy prefab doors? I mean, sky's the limit. Not
Sky
sure.
sky's the limit. I mean, I definitely don't mind fabbing something up myself.
Oh,
Just getting some piano hinge down
sure.
there, getting things bolted up and making it look as aesthetically pleasing as possible.
Okay.
So sky's the limit.
Probably what I would do. So if you noticed on my bus, I added, I guess, a level line all the way down, so my bus wasn't kind of cut up where the storage bays were,
Hmm.
and I just used 1 inch square tubing all the way across, um, to kind of bring that line level to the bottom of the storage bays. You could essentially do the same thing. Who knows? Hopefully, here before too long, I might be free and I can come help you. But
Get you some
um,
mobile income.
yeah, but yeah, probably what I would do in that scenario would be bolt downward facing one bys to your frame, and you'd have to strategically put those in the right places, of course. And then you can come off of your body on the outer ends and come down as well. You could prefab some stuff, of course. Um, God, I'm trying to relay this in words. What's in my mind? Fabrication is a thought process. But yeah,
Yeah.
basically, you just want to build like, if you just imagine taking a one by the length of your bus in between your wheel wells or something, or in between your tires, 1 by 1 square tubing, and then just come up wherever you need to up to your body, and those in between those will be where your doors would be. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
and that'd be really easy to do. And then you'd have to go on the sides, and then both sides on each deal, you'd have doors on each side, of course, that open up. And then you'd have runners of 1x going all the way through that you'd put the floor in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have your center supports coming down from your frame. You'd have your outer supports coming down from the exterior sides of your body on each side. And then you'd have your doors and a floor support. Pretty simple, just a lot of work, you know?
Yeah, a lot of welding. So in terms of those 1x's that are on the outside, how would I go about attaching that to the body?
You could probably either weld that, lean it up against the skins and weld that on the inside, or a better way would be, or an additional way, you could actually rivet through your skin into that as well. Your skin structures are actually pretty darn strong. If you'll notice, when you do climb onto your bus, you'll see your H channels that kind of run down through, and there's a skin hanging on it. Mm-hmm. So you could honestly attach right next to your H channel as well, and weld that right up against an H channel underneath your bus. Mm-hmm. And strategically put those, wherever you want your doors or whatever, There's a lot of material under there to attach to that's good and solid.
So it's not so much anything I need to do on the interior. That's going to be all exterior.
All exterior.
What I might have to do is send you a picture. Maybe we can get something drawn up, and then whenever you're free, we can meet somewhere on the road and then finish that up.
Okay.
Because I could definitely use your expertise on that, making sure I'm not messing anything up. If you're going to be free, I'll send you a picture, and then if you could just draw up something really simple so I can at least get the pre-welds in. But being that I guess there's not really anything I need to do on the interior, I can just leave that for now. Maybe send you a picture just to make sure what I have on my bus is the same as yours, just as an idea, and we can just kind of go from there.
Okay.
But I'm trying to think of anything else I would need to do before I start putting the insulation and the 2x4s along the floor for my base level of insulation, because I went through, cut out all the areas that had rust, patched them up with the 16 gauge steel, welded them around with silicone underneath that to seal it, and then I'm going to go underneath with Rust-Oleum spray can and then just spray the bottom of every cut and every hole so it's just completely sealed from rust. Is there any other actions I need to take? Anything else I need to do before that installation starts?
No, I think, from the top side, your floor looks really good. It looks like you use the OSPO on it and put a nice coat of, I'm not sure what paint you used on it, but
Rust-Oleum.
Rust-Oleum. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, from the top side, you did good. And I would kind of go underneath and just kind of seal those holes up a little bit with whatever, just to keep the water from getting in there for sure. And that bus will outlive you for sure.
That's the goal, man.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I did mine. I went underneath, and I actually used that 415 on the underneath of my bus wherever I had patch panels to weld or whatever. That stuff's kind of expensive, but if you're just doing little areas, it's not too bad. I don't imagine it costs a bunch to do the whole floor. That's why I didn't go that route. Mm-hmm. But seal it up real good. Another thing to think about is silicone is not a real good thing to use on a lot of that stuff because nothing sticks to it. So once you seal it with silicone, paint will not stick to that silicone. It'll just come right off. Mm-hmm. So if you can find a good automotive, like a urethane sealer type base stuff, for a lot of stuff, that'll be a lot better.
Well,
paint sticks to it.
Okay, so I just ordered some Sikaflex and some Dicor. So what I might do just to make sure, because I have maybe 6 or 7 patches, maybe on the patches I'll just go around the outside of those too, and like the corners just to seal that up 100%. And I also got it for the sides of the wheel wells right here where the floor meets the wheel well itself. I'm putting some Sikaflex in there as well. It looks like that's what they used from the factory. So
that ought to work really good. Yeah,
and then
good stuff.
Yeah, that's what we ended up using to go in between the 16 gauge sheet metal along the bus. So whenever we overlap the panels, we put a bead of Sikaflex in there, and it seems that stuff's pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
And then stuff. Somebody mentioned the the rails right there to it'd be a good idea to hit that with Rust-Oleum before going through and doing the foam as well, and that just puts a nice layer of rust inhibitor on that metal as well. Do you think that's necessary?
I wouldn't say it's necessary, but it's sure a good preventative thing to do. I think once you spray foam that, it's going to seal it up just like paint would.
Mm-hmm.
So probably not necessary, but it sure can't hurt.
Right.
For sure. Yeah. I did on mine. I epoxy primed all my stuff. So if you watch my videos, you'll see, it's kind of a gray colored epoxy primer is what I put on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then from this point, doing the installation on the floor, the 2x4s, and then getting some OSB or something along the top of the floor. I guess I need to figure out what we're going to be doing for the flooring, because once that spray foam comes on, I need to, as you mentioned, put down some sort of tarp or something, because once that spray foam gets on something, it's not coming off, right?
It comes off. It'll scrape off, but it sure makes a lot of work. I don't know if you watched my spray foam video yet, but I had to go and clean my whole floor up with a wire brush after I was done and repaint because it was such a pain.
Yeah.
It had a little thin layer of foam, little drops of foam everywhere, So, yeah, cover it up if you're going to do that after the fact of your floor.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And then, so at this point, doing the tape on the floor, the masking tape, figuring out where everything's at, and then getting my counter heights, trying to figure out where I want to put the receptacles, then start putting in the runners. And then for your roof, did you use some sort of flexible wood? What do you end up using on your roof?
Yeah, so on the very top of my roof, before it makes the really sharp curve, I used just some Luan, which is about 1/8-inch thick stuff. It's really thin. If I had to do it over again, I would just use a standard 1/4-inch floor. What do they call that? Anyway, you put it down on the floors or whatever before you tile or put something over it.
Okay.
It's a nice smooth plywood, and it's 1/4-inch, so it's got a little more rigidity factor to it. Mine, it looks really nice, but it's a little flexy because it's super thin.
Mm-hmm.
So do that up to where it starts curving really bad, because that's not going to bend real good. And then what I used on my sides where the curves were really sharp, I think they just call it bend-a-board, and it's basically a 3-layered plywood, and they ran all the layers the same direction rather than cross-hatching like they do with plywood. They ran them all the same direction, and there's a layer of kind of like a laminate windshield. Windshields are laminated with a piece of plastic in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's plastic between those 3 layers, so it allows them to bend in that intersection there, or curve there. There are other options, of course. You could just square your sides just like this, and then do your roof this way, or do your roof as a bend, but just keep your, just put a straight board between there, and then you don't have to deal with any bends at all. So I've seen it done many different ways,
But the aesthetics.
What's that?
No, I was just saying, but with the aesthetics, you went with the keeping that arch.
Yeah, I went with the bend-a-board, and honestly, throughout my bus, I've got upper cabinets all the way, or I will when I'm completely done, all the way through. So you can't even really see that arc anyway because it's inside the cabinet.
Absolutely. So, and then right above your head there, you have a 2x4 as a runner. And when I met you in Texas, you were saying that you use that as one of the main mounting tools for your cabinets, right?
Yeah. And initially, I was going to mount my cabinets to the exterior of those 2x4s, but I realized I didn't want the upper cabinets encroaching in on my space too much. So it saved me 6 inches roughly, to move it to the inside of that 2x4. So that's why it's exposed. But yeah, it creates a good mounting point to screw your stuff to. Just good solid mount.
So
I'll cover it eventually, but
you're going to cover it?
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is just put some of this cedar right over the fascia, right over the bottom edge of it all, and it's gonna overhang a little bit. And I'm gonna run an LED light strips from front to back in, so I can change colors and create a little ambiance.
That'd be pretty cool. So on both sides, you got that 2x4, and you're just gonna overlay a piece of wood over top those 2x4s. Like, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so say this is, I don't know how to create a 2x4 here, but say this is the bottom edge of the 2x4s up there. Or actually, I can just take you over here, I think. Let me see. Let me stand up on the couch here. So right here, yeah, so there's the 2x4 that's exposed. So I will just put a 2x4 right on the bottom edge, and I will overhang it just a little bit past like this. And then there'll be a space up here on the top side, since it's overhang, that I can run an LED light strip on the top edge of that board.
I gotcha.
Yeah, makes sense?
That makes complete sense.
And it'll run all the way, from the front all the way back on both sides, of course. So that'll cover up that 2x4 completely here, so it doesn't look so ugly.
And you,
like I said, I was going to mount the cabinets out here, but I ended up mounting them in the inside rather.
Right. I completely see what you did there. So if I were to do that same technique and didn't want the 2x4 showing, it doesn't really matter, but I just have to bring that in a little bit more as a runner, and then the cabinets can mount to that, because that was my question for you. It seems as though you put that runner in there anticipating the cabinets are going to be further out, but you ended up going on the inside of them to keep your space.
Right. So if you didn't want this here, put it on the inside if you're going to attach this way. But it creates a good point. So what I did, let me get my hand in the right position. What I did then is take screws on the inside of my cabinets, more over like in these areas here. Mm-hmm. And I went through with screws and attached to the back side of that 2x4 the inside of the cabinet. Yeah, go in the inside of the cabinet and screw up in the, that way I've got good mounting right to this 2x4 all the way through the bus.
Gotcha.
And then underneath these cabinets, sorry if that light's too bright, but all my cabinets basically are bolted to the wall, and then I put these cedar boards underneath the cabinet, so that creates something that the cabinet can actually sit on as well. Mm-hmm. Not initially from the build, of course, but this cabinet shouldn't go anywhere. It can't really fall down because it's sitting on the board underneath here. Mm-hmm. And it can't fall out because it's sitting up on the 2x4, so it should stay in place really well.
It has so far anyways, right?
Yeah, we're going to hope anyway. We'll see if I go to Alaska one of these days.
Yeah, that Alcan will it'll test your rig if they don't go over those roads.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. That I'm starting to get a clear picture in my head of how this is actually going to work. I mentioned this to you in Texas. One of the ideas I had with the ceiling was actually putting maps up there. So I was trying to figure out how I was going to pull that off and still look good, because it looks like you have lattice on your ceiling as well. And that's pretty much necessary for that benda board, right? Like, you need something that's going to be up there and holding it in.
Well, the benda board isn't actually up on the roof. It's just on the side areas.
Or the what'd you call it?
The luan.
Luan, yes.
Yeah. So I put basically you've got the sheets coming 4x8 sheets or whatever. So they butt right up next to each other all the way throughout the bus. Mm-hmm. So I've just used that little piece of lattice work or whatever just as a trim piece to cover that seam.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. And then to decorate it up even further, I'll just shine this up there. Yeah. So see my where's my yes, and then in between of them, I ran all these little runners. Man, everything's backwards. I'm trying to do that, but yeah. Can you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So these ones that run this. That run, parallel with the length of the bus, just are a decorative feature.
Okay, that makes sense. The scene has changed here a little bit in this video.
I'm gonna plug the computer in as well.
Yeah, so our computers are dying. I guess we're almost an hour in. Goodness gracious.
I'm plugging in on solar. How cool is that?
one day I'll be there one day.
Yeah, man, it's awesome.
But we were just discussing the pros and cons of. I mentioned OSB for the flooring, but I have seen some people that are actually using tongue and groove, and instead of putting laminate on top of that, it looked like they just sanded that down, put a nice stain on it, and then put 3 coats of sealant on that. Have you seen anybody do that, and what'd you do with your floor?
So actually, my floor's not done yet. I have seen people do that. I've got a friend that he's got a bus, and he did the same thing, and he actually burnt all his wood first.
Oh, cool.
And then put like 3 coats of polyurethane over it.
Yeah.
And it looks really nice. Looked really good.
How's it holding up?
What's that?
How's it holding up?
It's holding up pretty good. As long as that plywood's pretty tough in itself. Kobach may scratch it up, of course, a little bit. So I was going to put cork in here, but I've got a black lab as well, and I know she's going to scratch it up. So I decided to go, for me, I'm going to put that life-proof vinyl flooring in here. It's completely water resistant, and it won't swell if it gets wet, and it's got just a really thin layer of like a foam on the bottom of it, so it creates a little bit of a cushion, and just a very small insulating factor, of course, on these buses as well.
Right, life proof. I'm about to look into that.
Yeah, Home Depot sells the life proof brand stuff, so that's what I'm looking at for my bus. I've got so much wood everywhere. I don't want wood grain because it'll be wood everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to find a different option in the life proof. I know they've got some stuff that looks like scratched concrete, so I think I may go something like that on my bus.
Awesome.
But
so I'm going to transition now. Again, this is more of a preemptive, make sure that I'm not basically making sure that I don't have to backtrack at any point. Just a continuous flow of progression with this bus.
Sure.
So right now I have on my screen, I'm going to switch over to SketchUp. And for those that are watching, you're now watching a screen recording. This is the model that I've put together, and Wes has a copy as well. And this is after, I haven't been working on it for months continuously, but taking a week off, then coming back to it and looking at it and trying to decide if it's a good plan or what we want to switch. Wes, I wanted to pick your brain because this is to scale to a 1/2 inch from front to back. What our model's looking like. This is the floor plan that we're looking at right now. Just kind of wanted to pick your brain on the feasibility of this, what it would be like running water lines, running electrical lines, and anything that we should know. And I'll just do a quick rundown from the front of the bus where the 2 seats are, and then go back from there. So you obviously have the driver's seat with a couch behind that. We want to do a pull-out couch that has storage underneath. I don't know if we got to make something custom or what we're going to do, because this couch is actually over the wheel well. So I don't know if this couch is going to have to be lifted up in like a little bit like the passenger seat. So where G's going to sit is actually right over the wheel well. So need to get something figured out with that, and possibly, instead of doing a wood structure with that, possibly weld a metal structure for safety. You know what I mean? Like, so that seat isn't just hooked into a wheel well with wood. Actually make a steel structure that will be safe, and weld in a seat belt and everything with that. And then back behind that is our potential office area, storage up top. And this model, it's not 100% pretty because when I went through and did the inch by inch on this thing, I had to move some stuff around, and I just didn't feel like dealing with it. But it gives you the general layout. So we have the office area, little divider area right there, that little wood area. I envision that as a place to eventually mount an iMac. So as we're going down the road, it's actually mounted to that and have a nice solid structure for that. Switching around, next to the couch, we have the diesel heater with whatever mounting plate, whatever we have on there. And as we mentioned before, thinking about doing radiant heating with this. But wanting to do the diesel heater with gravity fed diesel from the motorhome, then the L-shaped kitchen area, and the fridge and the stove in here isn't 100%. That's just, it's just a placeholder for different options with a window right in front of that kitchen area. Switching around once again, we have the solar fridge, and that's actually the brand that Wess has, Eco Solar Cool. This is a little bit of it's a different model than the one he has because they stopped making the model he has, but so far he said that it's been working really well for him. Next to that is dry food storage, so pantry area. We cook a lot. We go out to eat maybe once or twice a month, so having that food storage is pretty important. Next to that's the eating area with some windows right in front of that. And what we're thinking about doing is implementing a drop down, like a fold out table here. And that way, whenever we want to do yoga, workout, or anything in the bus, we have this whole back area that we can utilize if it's not nice outside. Next to that is the bathroom. This is the exact same size as the bathroom in our RV. Plan on using a composting toilet with a shower system. Obviously, seen a lot of people using horse troughs actually, and then just a shower curtain around that. Then moving further back, we have a large storage closet area with the bed up top of that, with windows on both sides to have airflow in the bedroom area. And then one thing I don't have on here, and it's kind of hard to draw in, another thing I wanted to pick your brain about, Wes, is actually cutting through this side area in the back of the bus and actually installing a door on both sides to have through storage through here, because I plan on utilizing this area as water storage as well as just whatever storage we want to have inside the bus. And yeah, I just wanted to pick your brain on this, Wes. Any pros or cons, anything from your building experience that I'm not seeing? Being that you've built a bus, are there any aspects of this that you would change? Any aspects of this, like in terms of running the water lines, the electrical, wheel wells, anything along the lines that I'm not seeing here?
Your floor plan looks pretty nice, actually.
Thanks, man.
It looks like your all your water and your any propane or whatever, it's all going to be on one side basically, so that makes it really easy. And looks like you don't have many runs at all as far as your water line. Where you want to put your water tank?
So what I was thinking with the water tank is underneath the bed. Want to keep it within the coach itself, just for cold weather. The original goal, as I said, was 300 gallons, but it's more along the lines of I'd love to get that, whether I have an auxiliary tank underneath the RV and 150 or 200 inside to always, make sure that tank doesn't freeze. But it's more of, and it's not even the total weight of the bus. The bus has a total weight capacity of 36,000 pounds. It's more of keeping that weight off the rear. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, and I need to call Bluebird or somebody that knows these buses really well, or maybe you might know, is what is the correct weight distribution on these buses? Because I've also thought of putting our batteries, because this back area where, like, in between the dresser and the bathroom, that's actually going to be raised. Like, it's not on this, but it's going to be raised probably 8 inches to a foot. And I was thinking of installing 4 or 6 of those batteries directly over the rear wheel wells, to hold that weight. But I don't know how much of that weight can be held on the back of the bus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say if you can evenly put the weight in here, that's one issue I'm starting to kind of see on my bus, I think. You did good by you've got most of your stuff on your driver's side as well, just like I do, and a few things on your left side, but you're a little more evenly distributed from left to right than I am. And my bus has a little bit of lean to it, so I'm going to have to do a little suspension work to mine, just adding a leaf on the left-hand side. But I did just add a deck on the back of my bus, and I'll have a video out on that as soon as I get it completed.
Oh, yeah.
But I plan on holding 2 little CT90 little vintage motorcycles on there, little Hondas.
Cool.
But I'm noticing now my tires are starting to squish a little. So I know I can do anything to my suspension to make up the weight, but the tires are where the real issue lies. How much how many pounds can a tire actually hold? And they have different load factors. So keep that in mind as you build. Take it to a scale here and there, and find out what your axle weights are. I know your bus probably came with a little placard somewhere that tells you how much weight your front and rear axles can hold. So keep an eye on that. Just check that out, and then go weigh every now and then as you go on, and make sure you're still evenly distributing the weight fairly evenly on the front and back.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I'm definitely looking at, and it's like with those storage bays, once that gets sorted, like it would be huge for the weight distribution to put those batteries up front underneath on the passenger side, right? But then that will put them out in the cold, and it'll also be a long run of wire, right?
Yeah, totally. Where are you putting your panels? Are you going to go? You're one to go on the rear as well, right? On your panels,
right?
Top.
So with the panels, I was thinking about going over the last quarter of the bus, quarter to half, and then, like I said, with that deck, that would be towards the front, and then with that deck would also be access to the roof to clean the panels or doing whatever I need to do with the panels.
Right. Yeah, so you're going to have to come in probably, if you do put your panels, you'll have to come in through that little cabinet at the foot of your bed, more than likely. Come down through there with your wiring. And if you could, put your batteries down at the bottom of that nice little cabinet that you have down there. That's going to be right above your axle, basically, right there. Is that correct?
Well, the axle is, if you can imagine...
Right behind the bathroom?
Right behind the bathroom, over across to the other side, and that's actually where it's all going to be raised right there. So that's going to be that's where it's going to be raised about a foot. So if you can imagine, the first step up is about a foot, like
in front of that cabinet.
A foot in front of the end of the bathroom is where I had the masking tape to show the original steps. That's going to be like maybe a 6-inch step. And then leading into the bedroom area was like an extra 2 6-inch steps or 4-inch steps or whatever.
I'd say if all you have is your bed back in the back, you're more than safe to put your batteries right there in that little step up right behind the bathroom there. That'd be great, because you don't have much weight hanging out on the back side. You're pretty evenly distributed between your front and rear wheels.
Yeah. Well, the only tricky part is then where am I going to put the water?
That's true.
Because there's that massive, like, if I loft the bed like this, there's going to be...
Cancel that real quick. Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem at all. If I loft the bed like that, there's going to be a big storage area underneath, and that's where I was saying, like, putting a couple of those entry doors on the side where you can access that side entry for storage, as well as having the water tanks in there. Because, I mean, as I'm looking at this, I don't really see another spot where I could put water tanks unless it's underneath.
Right. No, I hear you, because you don't have much space. How much space could you elevate your bed and get like a 150-pound or 150-gallon water tank that's not very tall, maybe 12 inches tall, and pretty, I don't know what the dimensions would be, but if you could get one that's only like 12 inches tall by 4 foot by 5 foot or something.
Yeah, I mean, you can get custom ones made. I mean, that's definitely an option, and they have custom ones where they can make you some, and then they have some of them that are just stock, but they're special order. You know what I mean? When I was looking up earlier, I was able to find a website that did that. I mean, they weren't cheap, but I mean, it might be a situation where we might just have to go with 150 gallons just because of weight.
Right.
Like, it's not so much the total weight of the bus, but just the distribution.
Yep, I totally understand. And then you could have, maybe if you wanted, maybe 20, 30-gallon tank underneath for auxiliary, or even some of those military, 5-gallon jugs or something, just
Right.
to hold extra water and keep those under your storage bays underneath.
Yeah.
I would say if you can elevate that bed up without being too close to the ceiling, that would be a good option for your water tank back there. Because I honestly don't think you're going to have too much weight on the back of your bus. You're really distributed pretty evenly, it looks like.
Yeah, we'll see. But
Yeah.
any other things I should know before I continue with the runners? Anything with the electrical? Because I'm going to go through this and look at where I want to place the electrical outlets. Um, I guess everything else is kind of in the future. Like right now, I have other priorities, and then I'll send you some pictures of the underbay in terms of making sure that it is feasible to weld to the outside or bolt to the outside rather, and get some underbay storage figured out.
Yeah, I don't really see a whole lot. Your floor plan looks great. Um, I can see where you probably would need to go ahead and run some conduit and probably get your outlets in your walls before you insulate, because you don't have much cabinetry, especially on the passenger side, to run any outlets, and you've got your computer system over there and all that stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd probably definitely put some conduit in your walls, at least on that side. The other side you might be able to run through the cabinetry if you wanted, but man, if you know where everything's going, conduit's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've really liked this particular setup, and I don't really foresee anything. The only thing that's really not to scale is the overall height of the bus, but I don't think that really matters, just because this is just a little bit of, like, the cabinets are just a representation of what could be there, you know.
Yeah, well, and your windows are definitely different than you've got laid here. So yeah, things are going to change a bit for sure, but a little bit. But I think the overall floor plan looks great. I think you got a great distribution of weight. I like the fold down idea for this cabinet back in the back, across from the bathroom for doing yoga and different workouts and stuff like that. It creates a little more space. That's real similar to what I've got up here, in mine, right across from the couch here in the living space. That area folds down and creates space
Mm-hmm.
for that sort of thing. So that'll work out good for you.
Yeah, the only thing that I feel is not really utilized is that wall right there next to the eating area. And I know it's not a situation where just because you have open space you have to fill it, you know, but that is one thing that I'm thinking about. And I have had people ask me about the closet, like being that large. It's actually utility. So that's things I'm still mulling over and still open to suggestions on. But right
Right.
now, I really don't really foresee anything else. You know.
Yeah, it looks great. So you do got a 40-foot bus. What are you doing for Kobuk? Do you have a designated space for him to stay? I know with me and my bus with my black lab, I didn't design a space for her, so she's got a little bed that I just kind of move around on the floor in here, and it works out okay. But
Right. So with the pup, so for example, in the RV, when we go to bed, Kobuk, like, we have a bed next to us, but he prefers to go sleep on the couch. So
okay,
the couch is essentially his area, and
okay,
even with that, like, we probably will have a bed for him. Probably put it at the foot of the bed, maybe in the corner of the cabinet there, or
right,
right in front of the cabinet, and then just move it whenever we get dressed. Because how often are you actually in front of your closet during the day,
yeah,
right?
yeah, not very often at all, and that's what I do with Missy too. I throw her bed back on my little step up next to my bed, basically back there, and she just hangs out there.
Absolutely. No, I think it's what we're gonna do. And then once I get figured out where I'm gonna put the bed in terms of how lofted it's gonna be and the practicality of stepping up and getting that first framework figured out, then I'm gonna cut the side of the bus there and install a door. So I'm thinking just doing tubular steel, welding it to the H channel. And then I don't know if it's going to be inch and a quarter or inch, but either way, just welding that in vertically, then just welding on a door, kind of like the side door that's already on there. I think that's what I'm going to do. So
Yeah, that'll work just fine.
I guess we'll see. Well, hey man, I really do appreciate your time. We've
One more question I got for you.
yeah.
When you build your walls, like around your bathroom area
Mm-hmm.
and different spaces between your computer desk wall here, are you going to run those all the way up to the ceiling? Like as you noticed in my bus, since I did have the roof raise, I didn't necessarily need to go to the ceiling with them,
Mm-hmm.
and it does create a much more open feel, in the smaller space if you
Mm-hmm.
don't go all the way up. So maybe keep that in consideration if you like the way my bus felt when you were inside. You can see from front to back pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you lose out on a little storage space if you don't go all the way to the ceiling because you can get that extra foot or whatever you need. But
I feel like I'm really not going to know, and you might attest to this. I'm not going to know until we start putting the frames in, right?
yeah, I agree. Yep, 100%.
So, I
Yeah,
mean, right now, the tricky part that I need to get figured out in terms of how high everything, that back step up area is going to be a little. It's not. I don't think it's going to be tricky. I think it's going to take some time just to look at and get a good feel for actually what we're dealing with. You know what I
yep,
mean? Like actually getting in there and feeling it, because I had no idea any layout at all, like what I wanted to do until we got those seats out. And that's step 0.001. And then
exactly.
actually getting in there with some tape and measuring everything out to scale is step 0.002. Like we're not even to the first step yet.
Yeah,
So I don't know. It's definitely a process, but it's incredibly fun. It's definitely fun. I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. That's for sure when I'm out there working on it.
yeah. That's a cool thing about building a bus, man, is you can build them however you like, and it's totally different from everyone else's, and you can put your needs into the bus rather than being stuck with a cookie cutter or whatever, and adjusting your life to whatever's already built. So yeah, it's
And
really
even though it's a
awesome.
little expensive, you're saving money in the end because these rigs don't seem to depreciate. They actually seem to appreciate as
Yeah,
people are interested in them and people are buying them. I saw somebody selling one for like 47,000.
yeah, it's really cool. I've got some friends in the Millers, and they did pretty good on their bus. So
Wait, did
fantastic.
they sold
What's that?
theirs?
What's that?
They sold theirs?
Not the Millers that you met down in Texas. Some
Oh,
different
okay.
Millers. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, if people wanted to check out your videos and your bus, how would they be able to find you?
Yeah, so if you want to go to YouTube, just go to Transcend Existence, and that's the name of my channel. Maybe Chris can put a link down there or something for you
I
guys or
will.
something. Uh, yeah, and I've also got a website as well, transcendexistence.com, and there's some cool little deals on there along with some useful items list of different things that I've found have been really good for me and Chris as well. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you for your support, man. Definitely.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, no. Thanks for answering my questions. You probably get one text every other day of some random build question from me.
I do. I get questions all the time. Where do I buy the rivets and how, what gauge sheet metal should I use and all that. But
Yeah,
yeah, helping everyone out. If anyone has any questions, definitely give me a shout. I'll help you out the best I can from afar.
yeah.
And
No, when
yeah,
we were building the bus when I was with Jim, we are looking at. I remember looking at the windows one time. We are like, well, what would Wes do?
yeah,
So yeah, man,
that's
I
awesome.
appreciate the help, and like you mentioned, I will link your channel down below so people can actually see. Like right now, I'm at the very beginning stages where with your channel, you did from getting the bus all the way up to where you're at now. So if people are interested in doing schoolies, starting to change their mind from RVs over to schoolies, I mean, it's a great channel to be able to see the process and all the fabrication and all the work that goes into it. Because when I watched it, I knew what I was getting myself into, but not really, not until
Exactly.
I was hanging out with Jim out there at 10 at night trying to get all the rivets done so we can start cutting windows the next morning. And
Yeah,
my feet are
definitely.
raw, my hands are raw, my eyes are red from no sleep.
Yeah, definitely a commitment. You guys kick butt on that too, man. I'll
Yeah,
tell you
thanks,
what,
man.
you've done in good time. I spent a long time doing it, but I wasn't in a hurry to get it done. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you did good job.
It was fun. Well, hey, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. And I'll have to touch base with you on cryptos soon, cryptocurrency.
Totally, most definitely.
Thanks, man.